What if the outcome of a trial was already written before the first word was spoken? What if the truth was buried beneath power, corruption, and fear? And everyone in the room knew it. In a packed courtroom deep in the heart of Georgia, tension coils like a snake ready to strike. Every eye watches, every breath is held, but no one speaks of the injustice bleeding through the walls. Until one voice dares to challenge it, not with rage, but with precision. Not with fear, but with something far more dangerous, proof. When justice is rigged, who has the power to break the game? Stay with this story. Everything you think you know is about to change. The courtroom was suffocating. Lexington County Courthouse, Georgia, built with heavy stone and older laws, was packed wall to wall. Locals filled every seat, their eyes fixed on the front of the room, whispering behind folded hands. The air buzzed with anticipation, but no one dared speak above a murmur. Not in Judge Winslow's court. At the bench sat Garrett Winslow, gray-haired, iron-jawed, and unmoving as a monument. His black robes seemed to swallow the light, and his glare could wither a man where he stood. Decades of rulings, most of them merciless, had earned him a reputation. Judge Dredd, they called him behind his back. Never to his face. Court is now in session, his gravelly voice rang out. Let's make this quick. At the defendant's table sat Knox Wilder, 32, shoulders broad, but slumped under the weight of injustice. His red hair, vivid as flame, was streaked with a jagged line of white at the temple. His eyes, sharp green, darted nervously across the room. He wore an orange jumpsuit, wrists shackled, jaw clenched. The charge: resisting arrest with violence. The truth: buried. Prosecutor Elliot Kane stood tall, pacing before the jury like a performer on opening night. His tailored suit was spotless, smile sharp, confidence oozing from every gesture. He didn't need to win this case. He'd already won it the moment Judge Winslow was assigned. The defendant, Kane began, voice silk over steel, is no stranger to violence. He attacked a law enforcement officer. He refused to comply. He posed a threat, not just to the officer, but to the community. He pointed a finger, stabbing it through the air. Knox Wilder is a danger, and we must hold him accountable. No mention of the video. The one that showed Knox being thrown to the ground, his head slammed into the pavement by two officers. No resisting. No violence from him. But the court had ruled it inadmissible. Irrelevant. The crowd watched in silence. The jury sat still, faces unreadable. It felt like everyone already knew the outcome. Everyone except her. Ivy Quinn sat in the gallery, posture poised, her platinum hair twisted into a sleek knot at the nape of her neck. At 30, she radiated quiet power, her icy blue eyes watching every move, her tailored coat pristine against the dark wood of the bench. No one knew who she really was. Not yet. Knox turned slightly, his chains clinking as he shifted. His eyes locked onto Ivy's for a fleeting second, fear, confusion, desperation. She leaned in, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, her voice a whisper only he could hear. We haven't lost. Not yet. Wait. He blinked, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time in days. Ivy Quinn wasn't just a witness. She was the storm coming for them all. The courtroom had turned into a theater. Every word from Prosecutor Kane was met with approving nods, occasional smirks from the jury, and a knowing glance from Judge Winslow. The game was rigged, and everyone in the room seemed to accept it, except Ivy Quinn. Defense calls Ivy Quinn to the stand. A hush fell. Ivy stood with grace, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her platinum hair glinted under the harsh lights as she walked forward, eyes calm, movements measured. She took the oath, then sat, back straight, gaze unwavering. Judge Winslow looked her over, his lips curling into a smirk. "Miss Quinn, you seem quite confident. Let me guess, you think you understand the law better than I do." A ripple of laughter broke out. The jury chuckled. Kane didn't bother hiding his grin. Ivy didn't flinch. "No, Your Honor. I understand justice. There's a difference." Winslow's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "Let's keep this brief. The court's time is valuable." As Ivy began to speak, the judge interrupted, again and again, sustaining every objection Kane threw her way. Every time Quinn, the defense attorney, tried to push back, "Objection, Your Honor." Winslow's gavel came down like a hammer. "Overruled. Move on." He was silencing them, one word at a time. Kane stood tall, oozing confidence. "Your Honor, I believe we've heard enough. The prosecution rests. We're ready for the verdict." In his mind, the case was already won. But Ivy wasn't finished. She stood slowly, her voice cutting through the room. "Before this court moves to destroy an innocent man's life, I have something to present." Winslow's eyes narrowed. "This is highly irregular. Sit down, Miss Quinn." But she didn't move. Instead, she reached into the inside pocket of her coat and pulled out a small, black leather case. She opened it slowly, deliberately. A silver badge gleamed beneath the lights, sharp, unmistakable. The emblem of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Gasps echoed across the room. The jury froze. Kane's mouth dropped open. Winslow sat back in his chair, color draining from his face. Ivy's voice rang out, calm and cold. "I'm Special Agent Ivy Quinn, FBI. And I didn't come here to listen to lectures on law, Judge Winslow. I came to uncover the truth." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Whispers turned to shouts. Reporters scrambled. Members of the jury stared at each other in disbelief. Winslow banged his gavel furiously. "Order. This is my courtroom." Ivy stepped forward, her eyes locked on his. "Not anymore." Silence. The badge glinted like a blade in Ivy's hand, and in that frozen moment, time itself seemed to stop. Elliot Kane stood motionless, lips parted, eyes wide. He looked like a man caught in the middle of a hurricane, powerless, stunned. His voice, once so commanding, had vanished. Judge Winslow gripped the edge of his bench, his knuckles white. His face had drained of all color, lips pressed into a hard, bloodless line. Every pair of eyes in the room snapped to Ivy. The jury. The press. The crowd. No one spoke. No one breathed. Then, Ivy's voice broke the silence, steady, unwavering. "I am Special Agent Ivy Quinn, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I didn't come here for a lesson in law, Judge Winslow." Gasps exploded like gunfire. The jury turned to each other, whispering in disbelief. The gallery erupted, voices rising, questions flying. "She's FBI. What the hell is going on? This can't be real." Winslow slammed his gavel down, voice rising above the chaos. "Order. Order in this courtroom." But Ivy didn't flinch. She took a step forward. "You've abused your position long enough." Winslow's eyes blazed with fury, trying to reassert control. "You have no authority to disrupt my court. You're out of line, Agent." Ivy's gaze didn't waver. She took another step, closing the distance, her voice dropping to a low, commanding tone that cut through the room like ice. "I have every authority to expose corruption, to uncover the truth, and to bring justice to those who've been denied it. And Judge Winslow, your name is about to be added to an active federal investigation." Winslow staggered back in his chair, sweat beading on his brow. The courtroom had been his kingdom. But now, the crown was slipping, and Ivy Quinn was there to tear it down, one truth at a time. The doors to the courtroom burst open. A man in a dark suit strode in, briefcase in hand, badge flashing at his belt. The room fell silent once more, tension crackling like static. Ivy turned slightly, giving him a small nod. "This is Special Investigator Reed, Department of Justice. He's here to present sealed evidence in an ongoing federal investigation," Ivy announced, voice firm. Reed placed the briefcase on the prosecution's table and opened it, pulling out a thick, black binder. Its seal bore the crest of the DOJ, Immediate Authority. "Contained in this file," Ivy continued, "are records of judicial misconduct, witness tampering, and deliberate destruction of exculpatory evidence, linked directly to Judge Garrett Winslow." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Included are transcripts, financial transactions, and sworn affidavits from whistleblowers, proof that multiple verdicts under Judge Winslow were tainted by bias and personal gain. Kane's face turned ashen. His confident facade crumbled as he stared down at the table, refusing to meet Ivy's eyes. His hands twitched, lips parted, but no words came. The jury leaned in, exchanging urgent whispers. Even they couldn't stay neutral anymore. Ivy's eyes narrowed, focused on Kane. "You knew, didn't you? You stood by him, let it happen. Until now." Kane stood abruptly. I wasn't involved in any of this," he stammered, hands raised defensively. "If Judge Winslow acted improperly, I was unaware. I had no part in it." His voice cracked. The room could smell the desperation. The sheriff in the back row lowered his gaze, head sinking. He knew. Everyone did. This wasn't just one corrupt man. It was a rot that had festered deep, and it was all coming undone. Winslow tried to speak, his voice trembling under the weight of exposure. This is baseless. I demand." Sweat glistened on his forehead. His robe, once a symbol of control, now clung to him like a shroud. His hand gripped the gavel like a lifeline, but his authority was slipping through his fingers. Ivy took a final step forward, eyes locked on his. "You used that bench not for justice, but for personal gain, intimidation, and corruption. But today," she paused, letting her words settle like a final blow, "justice wins." The room exploded, shouts, gasps, flashes from reporters' cameras. The mighty had fallen. And Ivy Quinn stood tall in the rubble. The courtroom was silent once more, this time, with anticipation. The video, once deemed irrelevant, now played on the screen for all to see. Knocks on the ground. The officer's boots. His cries for help. No resistance. Only brutality. The jury watched, stone-faced. When the footage ended, the foreman stood, voice clear and unwavering. "In the case of the state of Georgia versus Knox Wilder, we find the defendant not guilty." Knox's breath hitched. He gripped the edge of the defense table, eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, he couldn't move. Then he broke. Tears streamed down his face, shoulders shaking with sobs that echoed through the silent room. He wasn't just free, he was vindicated. Ivy stepped beside him, placed her hand gently on his shoulder, and leaned in. "You're free now." Knox looked up at her, eyes red but alive, and nodded. Judge Winslow didn't even reach his chambers. Federal agents intercepted him in the hallway, placing him under formal investigation for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and abuse of power. His face was a mask of defeat as cameras caught every step of his fall from grace. Elliot Kane didn't wait. As the agents approached the bench, he grabbed his briefcase and slipped out the side door, pushing through reporters like a drowning man searching for air. He knew this case wasn't just over, it had marked the end of his career too. Outside, the courthouse steps swarmed with reporters, microphones shoved forward, flashes firing like lightning. Agent Quinn. What's next? Did you expect this outcome? Is this the beginning of a federal sweep? Ivy didn't answer right away. She stood tall, the courthouse looming behind her, her name already spreading across news feeds and headlines. FBI agent destroys corrupt courtroom from within. Ivy Quinn, the face of justice. She didn't want fame. She wanted change. Weeks later, Ivy received a summons, Washington, D.C. The Bureau wanted her to head a new division, a special task force dedicated to rooting out corruption in the justice system nationwide. Knox, once broken by the very system meant to protect him, now stood on stages, sharing his story. He joined advocacy groups, fighting for the wrongly accused, refusing to let others suffer alone. And Ivy? She stepped into her new role, not just as an agent, but as a symbol. A reminder that one voice, backed by truth and courage, could tear down walls thought unbreakable. Justice had been delayed, but not denied. Justice can be twisted, bent by fear, buried under lies. It can be delayed, denied, and distorted by those who believe power makes them untouchable. But justice, true justice, cannot stay hidden forever. Truth has a way of surfacing, even when it's buried deep. And when it does, no title, no bench, no badge is strong enough to stop it. Even the most powerful can fall. Even the most protected can be exposed. All it takes is one person, one voice brave enough to speak, one soul unwilling to yield, one stand strong enough to shake the foundation. Because when one person dares to challenge a broken system, they don't just make noise. They make change.